Welcome, everybody. I'm Todd Mann, Executive Director of NCSSS, and we're glad you could join us for yet our monthly Consortium Connects. For those who are new, I wanted to let you know that Consortium Connects are opportunities for our members to talk on certain topics of interest, and we vary those topics each month. And we also do this as informally as possible because we want all of our attendees to have a chance to, number one, be able to reach out in these days of pandemic to their peers at other schools, but also have a chance informally, not just to learn about the topic from our presenters, but also to have a chance to talk with them and engage our presenters on this topic. So we're pleased to have you with us. And as we always do, I'm going to turn it over to NCSS's Director of Marketing and Communications, Jen McNally. Jen.
Thanks, Todd. I appreciate that. So, as many of you know, we've been doing, as Todd said, our Consortium Connects on Zoom, which everybody is more than familiar with these days. And I do want to remind you that before we get started today, we have a few housekeeping items. We'd encourage you to keep yourselves on mute while other folks are talking so that we can all hear, but we do encourage you to keep your video on because, again, as Todd mentioned, this is a conversation. So we definitely want to make sure that we are having that integral conversation. Then the other thing is we are leaving room at the end of the conversation today so we can all take part and answer questions and ask them of our presenters today. So we want to make sure that, again, you take part in that conversation. You can send your messages or questions in the chat function, or you can just pop right in when we're done. And then that'll be fine for you to go ahead and just ask a question at that point. So today we are continuing on our trend of partnerships for our schools. And I would love to introduce our speakers today, Eric, Julio, and Ben. Squads Abroad and its Global STEM Telesquad programs are the high school division of Global Brigades, a highly recognized 501c3 nonprofit international development organization that uniquely implements a holistic model that targets UN Sustainable Development Goals with international partner communities. I'm going to turn it over to Eric now, and we look forward to this presentation.
Thank you very much, Jen, and thank you to NCSS for inviting us here today. We're very excited about this partnership. I am going to share my screen at this time, and hopefully everything goes here. So everyone can see that? Thumbs up. Okay. Great. Well, like Jen introduced, we are Global STEM Telesquads is a program we're looking forward to presenting and involving you in a conversation today. We were really excited about this opportunity to engage STEM faculty from across the country as we are in the process of implementing these STEM Telesquad programs currently running with dozens of high schools across the country, but looking to continually improve and expand and grow in the upcoming years as the COVID pandemic has sent us all innovating into how we can bring virtual learning, and in our case, international experiential learning into the classroom. So just, I want to start by introducing our panel today. Again, my name is Eric Werner. I'm the Director and President of the Squads Abroad High School Division. I was formerly a high school educator with a master's in education from the University of Washington, former Peace Corps volunteer who worked in small agriculture before going on to a teaching career, which led to my getting involved in international service learning programs. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Ben Erker, Director of Monitoring and Evaluation at Global Brigades. Ben received his BS in Civil and Environmental Engineering from Bucknell University. During his time at Bucknell, Ben made many trips to Honduras, which inspired him to further pursue water and sanitation issues. Ben went on to receive his MS in Civil and Environmental Engineering from the University of California. And Ben then joined Global Brigades in 2009, first as the director of our water programs, and now the director of our monitoring and evaluation programs. And Ben will further introduce himself when we get to his section of the presentation. Finally, I want to introduce my colleague, Julio Granados. Julio received his bachelor's degree in civil engineering at the National Engineering University in Nicaragua, and his post-degree in designing and evaluation municipal and industrial water projects at the National Engineering University in Nicaragua. Prior working for Global Brigades, Julio worked as a production supervisor at Cemex Industrial Concrete and was a resident engineer on road signing and repairing maintenance parks and volunteer at the Raleigh International Citizen Service Program. But Julio is our current WASH and water program manager, as well as our TeleSquad facilitator. So we'll look forward to hearing from Julio as well. So to get going here today, we're excited and resolute to stay on a time frame here. We very much, like I said, appreciate this opportunity because we are welcoming and looking for your feedback on our program and your recommendations as we scale and grow this program in high school classrooms involving STEM classes. So plan to introduce for the program for 20-25 minutes. Make sure we leave 15 plus minutes for your feedback and questions. So a little bit just to begin about Squads Abroad. Like I mentioned, we are the high school division of the 501c3 International Development Organization, Global Brigades. And Squads Abroad and Global Brigades, Squads Abroad specifically is the high school division, partnering with middle and high school faculty-led student groups to improve health, WASH, and economic outcomes in our partner communities abroad. So Squads Abroad, Global Brigades began in 2004. It began with college chapters mobilizing medical groups to go do rural healthcare in Honduras. The organization quickly expanded to focus on not only in healthcare, but also in WASH and economic development. And Ben's going to tell you more about our organizational mission. We've mobilized over 70,000 college and high school groups since that time. Up into the pandemic, we had essentially hundreds of groups that were positioned to go implement volunteer programs abroad. Since that time, and what we're going to tell you about what's the exciting development is how we've been able to engage thousands of students now virtually. But our goal is, and our mission is to inspire and mobilize communities to achieve their own health and economic goals. Our programs, both in country and our virtual, are a combination of virtual experiential learning while students making a real tangible impact in these communities we're working with. Integrating an element of cross-cultural learning into the program. So with that introduction, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ben, who is going to tell us a little bit more about Global Brigades, our parent organization.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Eric. And thank you all for having us today. Like Garrick mentioned, Global Brigades has been around since 2004, working with international development in rural communities and starting in Central America. Currently, we have operations in Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama, Guatemala, also in West Africa and Ghana. And we also have an upcoming operation in Greece, working with refugee populations in Athens and surrounding areas in Greece. But where I've focused and where Global Brigades WASH programs and water programs have focused over the years is in Central America and Ghana. We've been at it for 17 plus years. working in over 480 partner communities, and again, the number of volunteers that we've seen is upwards of 82,000. And so we have ample experience working with volunteers, both for the majority of those years, 16 years, volunteers physically on the ground in the communities, and then this last year transitioning into the virtual work, like Eric mentioned. While there are a lot of international development organizations out there doing a lot of great work, what we believe sets us apart is our holistic approach, working in different areas in each community, and also the collaborative nature of our programming, working with other partner organizations like yourselves, working with volunteers, working with the community members themselves, local governments, so on and so forth. Our ability to scale programs, creating sustainable programs that are scalable, so that we can expand that impact as time moves on, and also probably the most key factor is we have a full-time staff team of experts in the field that they're working in on the ground in our programming country. So we are not a one and done organization where the volunteers show up, do their project and leave, but we have an office in each country with a full-time staff. Julio, for example, is part of that team and based out of Nicaragua. So we have teams on the ground the whole time. I mentioned holistic approach. What you're seeing now is a diagram of what we call our holistic model with Lower Brigades. And again, these three components, and we really try to nail this home: sustainable healthcare, economic development, and water and sanitation infrastructure. And the focus of the remainder of this presentation will be mostly on the water and sanitation infrastructure part, but this diagram is circular for a reason. All of these programs work together. Obviously, having water and sanitation infrastructure affects sustainable health and preventative health. A lot of the work we do with water and sanitation projects are financed through economic development programs, community banks, access to savings and loan services for community members in the rural communities that we work. So again, all of our efforts are very interconnected, and we go into a community with the approach and the goal of implementing all of these programs and not leaving that community until they've reached that status of empowerment. We also, Eric skipped forward here, but we also align our programs with the UN Sustainable Development Goals 3, 6, and 8, which again are healthcare, WASH, and economic development. So we take a close look at the targets for each of those SDGs and make sure that we're basing our work around reaching those targets. Okay, Eric, so you can go forward now. So again, getting on track with specific programmings that most of you are likely involved in and interested in is our WASH programming, specifically our water programming as it relates to our STEM Telesquad program. Is what we do essentially is we will go into a rural community, assess its water situation. Most of the rural communities we work with in Central America and Ghana have some sort of lack of access to water, where they may have some access, some old dilapidated water system is not functioning properly, not treating the water properly, so on and so forth, or they may have no water system at all, no access to water, walking to springs, streams locally, untreated, so on and so forth. So what we do is we design and construct water systems, and the goal is getting sufficient treated water to the entire population of the community. We'll also train leadership in the community in the form of water councils to sustainably operate, maintain, and administrate the systems. And again, we have a full-time local team of engineers and field technicians to do that design and execution alongside the assistance of, in this case, high school volunteers, and also from the Lower Brigades perspective, college volunteers as well. So far, internationally, we've built this program. Has been operating since about 2009, when I showed up to sort of start it with Lower Brigades, and built over 55 community water systems serving almost 32,000 people with access to sufficient drinking water. So, Eric, I think I'll throw it back to you to go into more of the specifics of the Telesquad program.
Thank you, Ben. So now that you have a little context about our organization and Global Brigades, we fast forward to what was a year ago this time, and when the pandemic hit, as everyone had to do, we had to innovate our programming to respond to the realities of the pandemic. And for us, that response was, how do we continue to serve these communities that we have these sustained relationships with in these countries, with an on-the-ground team that has been able to continue our development work throughout the pandemic, and then really opening up, how can we, with this virtual environment, involve more students? And that's the key thing, and that's what's been exciting is obviously there are restrictive aspects to travel. We look forward to returning to more volunteer groups, being able to come down and volunteer for a week or more to make an impact on the ground. But in the meantime, how do we provide an opportunity for students to get engaged in the work we're doing, and use that as a means of experiential learning? So we developed the STEM Tele Squads in the fall of last year, ran over 36 programs in the fall, and currently working with over 56 programs in STEM, health, and in business. And that's just the high school division, college division, working with many more. But our STEM Tele Squads are essentially a virtual experiential learning program involving live STEM case studies in Honduras and Nicaragua. So students are designing a community water system that will provide potable water to households and communities in consultation and through the guidance of our on-the-ground teams. One of who is Julio Granados, who will be explaining to us here in a minute what that looks like in his experiences working with high school teams. But to give you kind of a context, each Tele Squad is set up as a series of interactive online sessions. Generally, our program has been comprised of 9 sessions of 80 to 100 minutes or 16 sessions of 40 to 60 minutes. I work with the teachers to schedule these programs. In most cases, we're working as part of a class. So fundamentals of engineering classes, a number of other STEM courses where this has been implemented. And this year with the pandemic, it's something that we've had groups do, all with students logging in from home. In some cases, half the students in a classroom, half the students at home, or can be done from the classroom. But we set up essentially, or we sometimes upon request utilize the platform of the school. But we establish the sessions based on the class schedule, adapting that as much. It sometimes is an after school. So maybe you have a STEM club that wants to do this as something after school. We can also then schedule that with the group to meet, after the school day is over. So I'm going to turn it over at this point to Julio, who is going to introduce a group he is currently working with, a problem set that he's currently working with a couple of schools on, and a little bit more about his experiences working with the program.
Thank you, Eric. It's a pleasure to be here. So yeah, basically we are we are trying to solve a real problem in Central America communities. With the support of the volunteers, we are also facilitating all the materials that we need and the tools in order to make full-scale water system design in community that doesn't have any water at all. There is lack of access in these grassroots areas. Like Eric said, this is a live problem set in which we are having virtual meetings with community members at the beginning in order to make the assessment, to make the interview with them, to know and collect all the data that we have. But not all that, also our monitoring and evaluation team gather all the kind of information such as baseline survey about the context of these communities that are going to help us to make the designing of the project through the weeks. For example, right now we are currently working with 3 groups, VIAs. They don't have any water, potable water. They have to walk to the neighbor community, which is located at around 5 miles away from where they are living. So each day they have to spend 3 hours at least back and forth moving buckets of water for their daily life. This is like a real issue in there. We are having meetings with the virtual meetings between the community members and the volunteer or students in order that they understand the context and what is all this about before we are going to make the training. We have local staff in the communities, technician that goes there to collect more information, more technical information such as GPS, data, that are going to be useful for our designing. For example, in this picture, this is what we are doing virtually. First, in the first picture, we have meeting with community members. We are presenting the solution, the proposal of the solution, the designing. And if they agree to move forward, we started working on the designing. This is something that we are trying to find the way to make virtually between all our students and the local team. And then we are developing different kind of infrastructure because every community has a different issue. So we are having reflection and discussing to find the best solution for each context. In this case, we are drilling wells, we are constructing catchment system, identify different water source. And there is a very variety list of knowledge, such as quality of the water, which is related with chemical things, also the hydrologic behavior of modeling of our network, which have to be a lot with calculations. Budget, also we have to, we have a session that is focusing to calculate the budget of these projects in order to know what it takes to make the implementation of a project like this. So at the end, our main goal is to support the families with faucets in their very homes. And the students also have the experience to be part of a full-scale water system design for rural communities of Central America. Here are a few images of the software that we are teaching to use, such as Google Earth, which is very important for the GPS mapping to know where is the community located, and also are interconnected with MapSource GPS mapping. That is more technical because we are going to learn about the elevations, the distances between the source, between the tank, between the households. All that information are going to be delivered session by session. And then we have another, which is the IPANET water system modeling. That is more about the behavior of the network, the pipeline network, conduction network that we have once we are starting inputting all the data. Also, we have checking for the construction of the tank. We have to learn dimensions and what are the most common materials near the community in order to prepare our infrastructure to collect the water. These projects are basically to working with organizations, with leaders from community members. There are water councils that are leaders that help us with this information, but also it is very important to say that our purposes is to give them at the end of this session a final presentation to explaining carefully step by step, what is this water system design about, and that report will help them to not just apply for funding, but also ask support for local government and other local NGOs. Here I have a few pictures about the first. We have the structure of a tank. This is a designing of a water tank reserve for a primary school. This community doesn't have water enough in 24 hours and doesn't have electricity. We developed the design with a STEM group, the John Burroughs School. So that is the progress of the construction. Once we get the funding, this group was so committed with this cause that they started to making fundings in their homes, in their school, in order to reach the total budget. And once they finish it, we are happily implementing in the community, digging trenches, connecting the pipeline, constructing the structure of the tank, reinforced bar, and all that was previously designed for several weeks with this group. Our final goal for sure is to bring water access to the entire community, the 100% of the community, through a distribution network that are going to be connected with household connections in their very homes. And also, but we have the reference for do that. There is a specific order that we are following, and that is something that take us to the next slide, which is the workbook, in which we have the detail step by step of each module, and also there are self-paced activities in that workbook that specifically assign the task and splitting groups to work as a team to the student. We are the facilitator on that, and also we are having feedback session with them in order that before we are presenting the final deliverable to the community member, we are making sure that the water system design is feasible and will be effective and have a budget that can be also achievable in this case. So that's basically what we are doing right now. I'm happy to say that we are working with 3 groups for Guayabillas, for this community, and we are trying to find the solution. Each group have a different perspective about all the information that we trying to give them in the previous session. Finally, we are going to go in more forward to learn about different concepts with the facilitator, in this case with me, also with the local team that is composed for all other engineers.
Thank you, Julio. Appreciate that description of the programs and the groups we're currently working with. There was a couple of slides that got omitted there. Just as Julio highlighted, each program includes a workbook, which each session has more details, link outs, and then what we call self-paced activities that students are essentially following up with each workshop, each session with a series of deliverables. We're scaffolding essentially the task of the water design system. So it starts with the GPS mapping, essentially working with the EPINET software, and eventually to the CAD design software. So I'm happy to share our essentially our program overview, the workbooks that we use, but just to note that that is part of the program that as well. So I think with that, I want to make sure we leave time for questions. At this point, we'd like to open it up. Jen, I'm not sure if you want to for me to lead or you to lead, but we're very interested, like I said, as we've been working with these groups, how do we continue to scale? How do we implement? How do we are we able to incorporate this within your high school classes? We are the international development experts, but we defer and we would appreciate the feedback of educators such as yourself in how to best move forward with these partnerships.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric and Julio and Ben. If you all have a question, feel free to pop in here live, or you can put it in the chat if you'd like me to read it out for everyone as well.
I have a question. Hi, I'm Jermaine McConnell, and I am at the Mississippi School for Mathematics and Science. The question is, I heard that sometimes these programs are a part of like an intro to engineering class or something like that. You know, so what are you finding right now? Is it already a class established, or this is a curriculum for a class that can be added in addition to maybe an intro to engineering class?
Great question. Yeah, the program itself is not designed to be a standalone class necessarily, but we're working with a lot of, like I said, fundamentals in engineering classes. It could be water dynamics, it could be any class, as a supplemental program that in many cases groups are meeting once per week, within the regular schedule. And we're also working with a number of like capstone groups. So CAPS as a capstone project, or essentially an additional experiential internship, if you will, type experience.
Thank you. I guess I was looking at the length of time that you were meeting, so I was like, whoa, that's quite a bit of time. But I'm sure that those things can be tailored, as you indicated earlier.
Right. So most groups are accomplishing the program in a span of 2 to 3 months. So essentially, 8 to 10 weeks. That being said, we have worked with groups. It can be done intensively in 4 weeks, meeting twice per week for 2 hours. The whole thing can be done in a month. It can even be done over the course of a week. If groups are meeting 4 or 5 hours per day, given attention spans, not usually the most recommended, but generally it's more spread out as either meeting once per week for 2 hours, an hour and a half to 2 hours, or twice per week for that 40 to 60 minute.
Excellent question, Jermaine. Thank you. Does anyone else have another question right now? Let me check the chat as well. Marin, it looks like you've come off of mute.
Yep. My name is Marin LaLiberty, and I run the bioscience program at Shattuck St. Mary's School. And the students in my program are interested in potential health science careers. So we would be more interested in a public health or medical program. And I saw that those are definitely a part of the Global Brigade. So who would I talk to about something more specific to health or public health?
Thank you for the question. Yes, you would reach out to myself as well for that. Starting place, squads.org is our website. Requesting info. Again, I'm Eric at squads.org. Yes, our health tele squad programs, to be honest, are in terms of numbers, maybe the most popular. We are working with a lot of health and medical academies across the country, as those health programs are incorporating an aspect of students getting involved in the rural clinics that we are providing in Honduras. So students get to experience through recordings of our clinics and then breaking it down with our medical staff, getting experience and learning about epidemiological trends and patient analysis from the work we're doing. And then really the highlight of the health tele squads is also the involvement in live telemedical consultations in our urban clinic in Tegucigalpa. So we do have a live clinic where students do rotations through telemedical consultations. So I look forward to sharing more information about the health. Thank you for that question.
Jen, can I sneak a question in here before I run out in the parking lot for dismissal for my students?
Absolutely, Jennifer, go ahead.
My name's Jen Cava. I'm the director at the Academy for Science and Design in New Hampshire. This is such a cool program, and I think could really interface very well with our mission. I'm wondering, in the sort of most successful of scenarios, who do you typically sort of work with? It's actually really making itself evident to me as I'm really interested in this, and I have all these other things I have to do right now. But who do you usually work with in a school that sort of, helps this to be successful? Like, do you typically connect with the classroom teacher? Is it like a curriculum coordinator? Like, when you really feel like this is supported in the school, who's doing that with you?
Yeah, great question. In my experience, it typically be the spark starts with a teacher, learns about, is passionate about what we're doing. In most cases, I am meeting with then from there, the CTE director, if that's the case in a school. There is a funding component in that, we ask that essentially, with a donation to our organization for these educational services ranging anywhere from $100 to $300 per student, depending on the size of the group. I'm working oftentimes then with the administration to secure the approval and the sponsorship of the program. It can be set up so students are individually funding their own participation in the program, but in most cases that has been funded through the school, and so typically works its way up to that district approval and funding, and then kicks back to the teacher. We work with the staff, what we call program associates, that would then be working with you to schedule it, the links, the materials, and getting all that stuff together.
Perfect. Thank you.
Eric, I think along those same lines in the chat, someone was asking, what are those introductory first steps to really getting involved other than just emailing you, but how does this get started, that kind of thing? If you could just expand on that a little bit more than what you just talked about with Jennifer's question.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the next steps is I would typically send out the different handout itinerary proposals that we have. Happy to share this presentation, or I have a presentation I typically share with teachers and schools, kind of outlining what we went through here, a handout for the group, and then depending on kind of the format for registering and funding, we can set up a crowdfunding page if that's going to be utilized. In most cases, working with schools, we're simply enrolling students on the back end. We don't share any data. All we ask for is first name and last name and email address to register the students. Again, none of that information is shared. And then we work with the teacher. It really comes down to the scheduling. What works for your schedule? What days of the week does the class meet? And then scheduling with Julio and our staff on the other end to line up the program. So it's pretty straightforward. Reaching out, typically we set up an information call to walk through the needs of the group, and then we start the scheduling and planning process.
Great, thank you. And then another question in the chat is, are there costs associated with it? What are those, and how does that work with the schools?
Yeah, as I alluded to, and I'll share it. It's also part of the handouts. If you're interested in looking at a handout, it's a sliding scale depending on the size of the group, and like I said, it ranges from 100 to 300 per student. The minimum group size we're looking for is 8 or more students, as each group is a custom program we're putting together just for your classes. You're not being co-opted or working with other classes. So it's a custom program. Those donations of 100, 300 per student is typically approached as a group sponsorship, like I said, with schools. And then that is going, of course, to the staffing for Julio and the staff facilitators to do this work. And it goes to support everything that he talked about, our ability to get out to these communities, to make these assessments, to be filming the videos that are all part of the materials. We actually bring in the water committee for a couple of sessions. So students are physically meeting people from the community. So those donations in the form of the educational services go to support our ability to staff and implement then that project.
Excellent, thank you. And you've mentioned we are going to share the presentation, just so everyone saw that. I put that in the chat, and we also share the recording of this session, and included in that, I put it in the chat as well, but I will also share Eric's email as a contact information within that follow-up email as well. So everybody will have access to that. Do we have any other questions that I may have missed while we were doing that? Anybody want to jump off of mute and have a question that I missed?
All right, then. Well, let me just unless another question pops up, I just want to jump right in and just say thank you for a fabulous presentation. Eric, Ben, and Julio, this was just terrific. It takes us outside of ourselves, what we do every day and every week, and it expands that world and in a way that's constructive and positive for everybody. I just can't tell you enough about this, and the feedback I'm seeing and hearing around are a lot of folks are going to take this internally and see what they can do and how they can figure out how to participate. It's a feel-good learning experience, and I don't know how there aren't too many opportunities for that. So thank you for sharing that with us. We appreciate your taking the time. To all of our attendees, I want to thank you for joining in and learning about telesquads and how this can be involved with our schools. And as we do, we will be holding our next Consortium Connects next month. So stay tuned when we send you information on the topic as well as the date. Thank you all again, everybody. Stay safe.
Todd, are we done? I have one more question.
Oh, excuse me, Jermaine. Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Todd. But okay, so age of students, what are you typically looking for? Is there a minimum age? I may have missed that. And also, is there a particular background that you're looking for that students have had?
Yeah, we do. The age limit is really 14 up for this program. So really freshmen, while we do some of the in-country programs with middle school groups, not advisable like at a middle school level with kind of the tally squad at a more technical level. So open to freshmen through seniors. We've worked with the gamut, throughout the year. In terms of background, no, I mean, there's no specific requirements. We're doing some innovative programs that are combining Spanish classes with STEM students. So include Spanish students that don't have any STEM or not necessarily interested in the STEM, but interested in the language learning component, which is another aspect we kind of didn't dive into, but as I referenced, there is a real cultural learning and language component to the program as well. So this program is essentially one we're doing with college groups as well. So it can really be expanded, and we adapt it based on the experience of the group. For example, the CAD design experience. We get some groups that have been working for years in CAD design. We work off their software platform. Other groups, are doing pen and pencil, drawings. So it's highly adaptable in terms of the level of the students.
Thank you, and that's it for me.
You sure, Jermaine? Because I don't want to, cut you off here. I'm getting a little gun shy here. Okay.
I would just add, this is Ben, I would just add that regardless of background, as an engineering student, eventually when I got to college, I would have wished to have an experience like this at the high school level, right? I got introduced to it and then it became my passion in my career. But regardless, again, of specific background or the direction that the individual student is looking towards in terms of the career, the experience of interacting with a rural community in Central America that has way different challenges than that student might be typically exposed to in the US or wherever they're from, and then going on into an engineering career, developing this, global engineers or global whatever their career ends up being is extremely valuable. So that portion of it is very sort of independent of academic background or focus. So I would encourage anybody who's interested to get involved. It's eye-opening to see and interact with people in Central America who don't have access to clean water, for example, regardless of who you are.
Thanks for adding that, Ben. Anybody else before I back? Okay. All right, then. Well, thanks again to our panelists. As a reminder, our next Consortium Connects will be April 20th, and we'll be talking about the second in our series on equity and inclusion. So thank you all. Appreciate it. And stay safe, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a month. Again, to our friends at TeleSquad, thank you very much for sharing all this with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, everyone. Great to connect.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Sure.
Bye-bye.